Now let's talk about the most important sector, which is agric. And Professor Albert Edu is an agric economist and agric business management lecturer at KNUST. And he joins me to dissect some of these agric stories. Prof, thanks so much for making time once again.
Thank you very much, Mapito.
All right, now let's talk about the African swine fever, which affected almost 1,000 pigs across the country.
Yes, I think that was one of the low points in the agricultural sector for the year under review. It's quite a dangerous disease, a viral disease that has no cure as we speak.
Yeah.
And it's spread across the country. Now, you would have noticed that a number of the youth have developed interest in swine production or pig production.
Yeah.
And so they started trying to earn a living from this enterprise. And when they were hit by this disease, it was quite a devastating blow. And I think that going forward, we have to try and look for insurance packages for some of these young people so that when some of these things happen, they don't lose their investment. And the agricultural sector in general doesn't also suffer.
So now going to 2022, what are like 2 lessons we've learned from this so that if it happens again, what are some of the measures we'll take?
Like I said, because it's a disease that one cannot control, we have to rather look at preventive measures. Okay. And then one of the most important ways of trying to minimize the risk that you face is to maybe call for an agricultural insurance scheme that will now have a product that some of these farmers can buy, and therefore when something like this happens, then they can have some compensation to take care of the challenge that they have faced. It's also something that I think government will have to pay close attention to. Our friends in the Veterinary Services Division should pay close attention to. We should educate our farmers more so that they know what to do in order to prevent some of these things from happening. When the outbreak occurs, they are supposed to separate those that are sick from the rest so that we don't transport animals from one pen to the other in order to spread it. So I think a lot of education going into the next year will also help us to minimize the risk of this particular disease.
All right. So now from the African fever, let's talk about maize scarcity. I mean, that was quite a huge problem because it also affected the cost of poultry feed. But let's start with the maize scarcity.
Yes, maize was also badly affected. And as you would know, maize is a major staple crop in the country. And almost all the food that we eat in our home, maize is a key ingredient. And so it was affected badly. It just exposed how vulnerable our agricultural system is to the risk of climate change and weather variability. And so because we had poor rainfall, and then we also had issues with fertilizers, delaying and all that, the end result was that the quantity we were supposed to harvest, we could not harvest that. And then, like you rightly pointed out, it has repercussions for the animal production sector as well. You see, maize is a major ingredient in the feed of farm animals, poultry sector. And so nowadays, you go to the market and you see that the prices of eggs have gone up, the prices of meat have gone up, all because the major ingredient that constitutes their feed, the price has also risen. And so I think that maize gives us a key lesson going into 2022 that government really has to set up. When we are talking about irrigation infrastructure, we have to be more serious about it so that we don't depend overly on the natural weather. Again, if we have to put things in place so that all the fertilizers that we want to procure come in good time, let us do all those groundwork, because when you have bottlenecks along the input supply chain, then you are likely to see some of the things that we are seeing. So I think government has to really learn serious lessons from the maize episode.
All right, so now I have a farmer friend and his name is Jay. And Jay this whole year was, just complaining about the high cost of poultry feed. He had to use most of his savings to feed his poultry, and also of the bird flu that impacted the poultry industry, and it almost made it collapse. Firstly, the high cost of poultry feed. Looking at 2022, what is the projected outlook when it comes to the cost?
Yes, unfortunately, we cannot predict the weather pattern correctly because of maybe, let's say, the unreliable nature of the weather. Climate change generally is affecting everything. So our weather friends are supposed to also help us do a good job so that we can predict.
Yeah.
Now, going into the future, it is still going to be difficult because we don't know yet. We haven't entered 2022. We don't know whether the weather patterns are going to be better than we had in 2021. And so let's just pray. But like I said, government cannot be praying. Our farmers can be praying for good rain, but government should be planning towards putting in place small-scale irrigation infrastructure so that when there is no rain from God, at least we can take advantage of the dams around so that we can irrigate our farms, grow our maize, and get a lot of maize onto the market. When we have maize onto the market, we will be able to supply the poultry farmers so that they can bring down the cost of feed. When the cost of feed comes down, the egg price will come down, and then the price of the meat will also come down, and everyone will be okay.
Yeah.
And so we are calling for pragmatic measures. We cannot throw up our hands in the air, just like the farmers are doing. They don't have the capacity. But as a state, we have the budget, we have the capacity, and we have to plan so that we don't go through the same cycle next year.
Okay. Now, COVID came and it destroyed a lot of things. Places were shut, borders were also locked. But as things started to open up, the air borders, the land borders remained closed. Yeah. And now there were issues about Ghana still importing tomatoes from Burkina Faso. For example, yesterday I wanted to do some New Year lunch shopping, and I went to 3 shopping markets or supermarkets, and I couldn't find tomatoes. So what's the whole issue with that? What's happening with that particular problem?
Yes, so COVID affected almost every sector of the Ghanaian economy, in fact, the economy of the world at large. Fortunately for us, the agricultural sector was quite strong, quite resilient, and so it was not badly affected as other sectors were affected. Nevertheless, you are right in pointing out that once the borders were closed, then all the tomatoes that we get from Burkina Faso, you are not going to get them in the quantities that we are used to. Nevertheless, a few truckloads still find their way here. How they get in, that's why your guess is as good as mine. But you are right. If the borders continue to be closed, we are protecting life and we are also protecting livelihood. Those women who depend on the tomato trade, those who go to Burkina Faso to bring the tomato to Ghana for us to get some to buy, their businesses are also going to suffer. Again, we have a lot of yam that also travel from Ghana to the Sahelian region. We have also traders who go there to bring cowpea. And so we trade with Mali, we trade with Burkina Faso, we trade with Togo. And so maybe because of Omicron and the new variant, we can understand the position of government. But going forward, when the things subside a bit, I would encourage that we partially open the border to allow food to flow in. I know the original lockdown did not include food commodities. If you were moving food commodities from one region to the other, you were allowed because people were going to depend on the food. I hope that the same thing will be brought to bear on the closure of the border so that there will be some trade among these neighboring countries so that our farmers can also benefit, our traders can also have some livelihood.
All right. So, I mean, government had always mentioned that Ghana was self-sufficient. We can always, do it ourselves, but it turned out that was not true?
When we say we are self-sufficient in food production, we produce so many crops.
Yeah.
We produce a number of animals. So you can be self-sufficient in the production of a particular food commodity, and then you can be relying heavily on import for another food commodity. Over the years, we have heavily relied on rice import. We have heavily relied on importation of poultry products. But overall, when you look at the larger picture, then you see that we are able to produce more of the staple. So our cassava, our yam, our plantain, those ones, we can produce what our people require for their sustenance. And so when government says that, one can understand them. But there are certain commodities that we are unable to produce what we need. And that is why we have been exposed. And let me also make it clear that in the agricultural sector, risk is so inherent, it's so common. And so this year you might be self-sufficient in one commodity, a particular risk can strike, and then you fall into a situation of vulnerability. And so the self-sufficiency is not something that is going to last for a long period. You need to manage it year after year so that your people will have food to eat and will not go hungry when there's some small volatility in some of the variables that we cannot control.
All right, now before I let you go, let's talk about the Planting for Food and Jobs program. 2021, how did that go for us?
Unfortunately, 2021, I think PFJ, Planting for Food and Jobs, had a lot of negative reportage because of the delay in the supply of the fertilizer. And that is why earlier on I made a point that if those in the ministry will set up and plan ahead of time, so that if they have to place the orders, they place them ahead of time so that we get them in. Remember that farming is time-bound. If you have to plant, you have to plant at a particular time. If you have to apply fertilizer, it must be applied at a particular time. You cannot bring in fertilizer at a latter period and expect that you get the same result. And so once we are going to expend a lot of money to bring in these things, let's do all the legwork right so that we can bring in the volume at the right time. Then the farmers who are benefiting from PFJ will get these fertilizers in good time. Apart from bringing it in, there are some problems internally in the supply chain. And I think government will have to maybe get some experts or get some security guys to try and go through the system and try to identify those who are hijacking the system. Sometimes the fertilizer will be there, but there's some artificial shortage within the system, and farmers struggle to be able to have access to it. If these things continue, you will spend money on this input, but they will not translate into the high yield that we are expecting. So going into 2022, my hope is that the ministry will set up, get a technical team, get some security guys to disguise themselves and go through the system and fish out some of the guys who are sabotaging the system so that we can deal with them so that there will be flow of input throughout the system, and then the agriculture sector will flourish as we all expect it to.
All right. Professor, thank you so much for all of that, and I wish you a fantastic agriculture year for the year 2022. And
thank you very much. My people to be there. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. And that is where we end Joy News today with me, Mapisa CBD. You know you can join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are Joy News on TV. The Marketplace is next.